Greetings, everyone. I'm Mar, and once again, this is my opinion. There's another JoJo with Nazis. Oh my god! As that outburst in the title up there tells you, I have finally gotten around to reviewing a film that, when I saw the trailers for initially, I'm like, alright, this looks like an interesting film. Weird, but interesting. Sadly, I didn't get around to watching it during its original theatrical run, but thanks to the fact it did get some Oscar nominations, including Best Adapted Screenplay, which it did win for, by the way, I was like, yeah, I'll watch it here. And I got around to watching it during that one, and I have to say, I did enjoy the film. That film, of course, is Jojo Rabbit. And to answer the question right off the bat, yes, there actually is something behind the title. It's just not one of those weird film titles where you look at it and go, does this have anything to do with something in the movie? Yes, there is a story reason for it. It's actually a derogatory nickname that our title character gets from some of the older members of the Hitler Youth, and it's a play on his name, Johannes, which is shortened as a nickname to Jojo, and they're comparing him to a rabbit. Which, when I heard that, I'm like, alright, they gave it a story reason. Now, the film is written and directed by Taika Waititi. I'm just going to call him Taika for the majority of this so it's easier. And he also plays Hitler, the imaginary Hitler. And considering he's of Jewish ancestry, what better way to give the Führer the middle finger than to have him played in a film that is essentially lampooning the worshipping of Hitler by the Hitler Youth and the party in general, than have a Jewish actor, director, writer play him. And that actually was his motivation behind it, and he plays it beautifully, which I'll get to in a bit. The cast includes Roman Davis, a newcomer who plays Jojo. You got Sam Rockwell in there as an alcoholic officer. You got Alfie Allen in there, interesting enough, of Game of Thrones and John Wick fame, which I didn't know he was in this film until I saw his name in the opening credits. I'm like, he's in this film? Well, let's see what trouble he does. He is essentially just a glorified supporting actor. He doesn't really have any memorable lines that I can remember. Of course, Scarlett Johansson's in the film. She plays JoJo's mother, and she does a pretty good job. She got an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress out of this. I haven't seen Marriage Story, but just from the one scene in that film I've seen, I could definitely see the acting nomination for that one was more warranted. But I can see the appeal of her getting a nomination for this one. And of course, Rebel Wilson's in there as a random Frau who helps with the Hitler Youth program. I know a lot of people, just from the Facebook groups I was reading, were kind of put off by her being in this film, and that's one reason they didn't want to see it. She's a supporting actress. She's only in a handful of scenes. And I understand there's a kind of hate of her because of how she is in certain films, which I don't think I've seen enough of her films in order to make a full comment like that, but it seems to be on the same wavelength as the hate from Melissa McCarthy. I say that hate I get a little bit more from the writing standpoint. Rebel, maybe if I've seen more of her films, I get it, but just from a few films of her I've seen, and of hers, like, for example, her role in Pain and Gain, I just don't get it yet. Here she was tolerable. I'm probably going to butcher the first name, but Tomasa Mackenzie rounds out the cast, and she actually is the actress that plays the Jew that Scarlett hides, which I'm jumping ahead of myself a bit. The plot of the film is it takes place in the final year of World War II. Everything seems to be going good at first, and they don't pinpoint exactly when the film takes place at first, but then when dialogue, you're like, oh, it's that far in, and they're still like this? Ooh. They're really trying to make it seem ideal, which I'll keep that in mind. I'll get to that in a few. Jojo, our title character, is a member of the Hitler Youth. He aspires to do everything proper, be a good little German boy, and be a great member of the party. But he has things about him that is like, he doesn't think he can do it. He self-doubts himself a lot. And this carries over into the scenes we see in a lot of the trailers, which, if there's one thing I gotta get off my chest right from the beginning, most of the scenes we see in the trailers, other than a few random moments like "You're a Soldier Now," are from the beginning of the film. So all the frolicking Hitler, the Hitler Youth stuff, that's the opening part of the film. But you'll give the film credit, it doesn't spoil a lot of what's in the film, which I have to applaud it for. In order to pump himself up, he has an imaginary friend who takes the guise of Hitler. So it's like Die Führer is giving him motivation, and it's a nice little scene. Of course, he has to quickly catch himself when others walk in, so they're like, "Hey Jojo, are you talking to yourself again?" "No, no, no." Well, he ends up injuring himself at camp, goes home with his mother, and during the recovery process, he does odd jobs around the town for the German officer. And it's during this time he discovers that his mother, who is supportive of him as best that a mother could be at this time, even though you could tell from the beginning she does have reservations about it, which she does vocally tell him later on she has these reservations about it. He finds that she is hiding a female Jew in the attic. Now, one thing the film never does is that there's never a scene where Jojo confronts his mother about it. And the main thing is because if she finds out that Jojo knows, she's sending the girl away. The girl knows this, so it's a thin line that is crossed. It's the minor tension throughout the film. The bigger one, of course, is if someone other than the mother finds out about her being there. Because if the officer or anyone higher up the food chain than him finds out that there is a female Jew being hidden in an attic in this town, you know there's going to be a lot of butts nailed to the wall. Jojo's mother's going to be in trouble, the girl's going to be in trouble, and there's going to be at least 2 deaths here. But they might be, but depending on how things roll, they might be digging a hole for 3 bodies. The camps aren't brought up a lot, but they're brought up enough to help undercut and add to the tension of the situation. And as the film goes on, Jojo, he talks with the girl a lot. You can tell from at the beginning there is a weird little understanding between them to where they're not going to squeal on each other, but they don't like each other. But as the film goes on, they become friends, and with how the ending is, it's like they kind of adopt each other in a weird sort of way. I don't want to give more context to that other than that because that will spoil the ending, and I don't want to spoil the ending. If you know anything about World War II, you can kind of guess it's sort of a happy ending, but it's bittersweet. As the film goes on, the tone does change a little bit because it starts off all happy-go-lucky, but then as the film goes, it gets a little bit more dramatic. There's still little bits of comedy. It's dark comedy satire, so it's not too much of a tone shift. It's not like you're going from a traditional comedy all the way into a drama film. And I think because it's a satire that goes in the dark humor direction, you can get away with that. It's not satire like, let's say, most of Mel Brooks' later films, where it's lampooning satire. I'd say it's more akin to how he did his satire in The Producers, where he's making fun of it. Of course, this one's a bit more serious. It actually takes place during the war instead of lampooning Hitler and everything after the war from a safe distance. So you gotta try to make the flow a bit more naturally, and I think Taika actually managed to capture that both as a writer, director, and of course, as the one playing Hitler in his performance, it's there. Now, from a story perspective, this makes sense, because as the tone starts shifting more towards the drama perspective, it's showing that Jojo is actually starting to realize that there's more to his life than just being a stooge for the party. Because in the beginning, Jojo's all into the Nazi party. He's gone all in on it. He wants to be a good little German boy, but as the film goes on, he sees that everything that he's been taught by the party is wrong. He sees the Jews are not necessarily bad. He sees a lot of the stuff that the party has told him is not necessarily true, both from his interactions with the girl and, of course, a conversation with his mother, plus his own little musings as he sees how the war is going. And then near the end, when Germany falls, his eyes are fully open and he sees, boy, was I such a child then. I mean, he's only grown a couple months since the beginning of the film, but in that time he's aged up here a little bit to where he can see, boy, was I such a sweet summer child then. As you could already guess from a couple other comments, the acting all around I think was pretty good. I mean, Sam Rockwell does a decent job for how many scenes he's in the film. Trailers don't give an indication, but his character is supposed to be blind in one eye. And the fact that he is an alcoholic adds to it. He does have the right amount of over the topness in the scenes that account for it, like the ending battle where he goes into the battle with this very interestingly designed uniform. But he also has some pretty good subtle acting moments, such as when the Russians have all the German officers rounded up. And this goes into the little character moment I like about his character in the film, and that is he knows there's a lie going on. He can see through it, but he's not going to say anything. And that plays into that moment near the end. I don't want to spoil because I want those who see the film to see it for themselves. But it's a nice little moment like, alright, I'm glad they included that. Like I mentioned, Scarlett Johansson, she is pretty good. You believe her as a mother. You believe she is trying to do right by Jojo, but then you can see that she is a little afraid and turned off by his fanaticism to the party. She wants him to make his own decisions, but she also wants to try to guide him towards making the right decisions. And there's one scene around the middle of the movie where they have a conversation out in the streets that play into that. But it also leads into the conclusion of her character arc, which I'm not going to say anything spoilery about it, but it's one of the moments where I'm like, alright, I did not see this coming, but I should have, considering what period in history we're talking about. Rebel Wilson, I've already talked about. She's not too bad in this film. And Alfie Allen, not really much to say about his performance other than he's there. Roman and Tomazin are the hearts of this film, their relationship, their back and forth, that carries the film. And without them, there'd really be no center for the film. And near the end, they're the only two characters we really interact with. And seeing their ending, it is where the film ends on a bittersweet moment, but there's that hint of hope. And if you know anything about the end of World War II, you can see why it goes in that direction. And it was a nice little moment that got me to smile. Their back and forth, their dialogue really does help with JoJo's character growth. And when she finally does open up to him 100%, you really do see that she does trust JoJo and that he's not going to squeal. And then, of course, there's one moment, I'd say it's about the beginning of the third act, where I'm like, alright, this is where their character arcs are walking that tightrope. And their interaction with both each other and the rest of the actors in that scene really makes that scene work. And it's probably the most dramatic scene in the movie, just from a tension and real-world history knowledge standpoint. And of course, Taika playing Hitler, he really nails the role in both the lampooning of the image of Hitler, and of course by the end, when we see a little bit of his channeling how Hitler actually was from an insane standpoint, the whole arc. And of course, considering the satirical nature of the film, he goes out in such an over-the-top manner that it actually got me chuckling a lot. I'm not going to spoil it, but it was fun. In conclusion, Jojo Rabbit, very entertaining, dramatic comedy. Definitely deserved the Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay. That's right, it's based on a novel. I actually want to track down the novel and read it and see, what the differences between adaptation and source material are. Plus, to see if it's an entertaining read. Deserves some of the other Oscar nominations it got, from costume design, editing. It got a nomination for Best Picture, which, since it's on my favorite films of the year, I'd be amiss if I said I don't see how it got that nomination. I can definitely see why others were more in the conversation to win, though. Scarlett, I could see why she got her nomination. Out of all of them, it definitely won the one it deserved to win. And as you can tell from how I've been praising the film, if you haven't seen Jojo Rabbit, if you've been on the fence about it, I'd say run under that fence like a rabbit running for some spinach and put the film on.